Adam Sandler and David Spade, reunited with a terminally ill fan. What they did made the world cry. The crisp autumn air of Missoula, Montana, had begun painting the town in fiery hues of red, orange, and gold. Nestled between rolling hills and rivers, the small community bustled with the quiet rhythm of everyday life. Inside a modest two-story house on the outskirts of town, Emily Thompson sat by her window, watching leaves tumble gracefully to the ground. The soft beeping of her oxygen machine was a constant reminder of her reality. At just 19, Emily had lived more life in hospital rooms than most people did in a lifetime. Diagnosed with a rare and aggressive form of pulmonary fibrosis, she had fought bravely, but the doctors were now clear her time was running out. Emily had accepted her fate with grace, focusing on making her remaining days meaningful. That's when she decided to write the letter. Clutching a pen in her slender fingers, she carefully crafted her words. There were two people she had admired since childhood, Adam Sandler and David Spade. Their movies had brought her comfort through lonely hospital nights and painful treatments. Their humor had been her medicine when everything else had failed. "Dear Mr. Sandler and Mr. Spade," she began. "My name is Emily Thompson, and I'm writing from Missoula, Montana. I don't have much time left, but you've both been a big part of my journey. It would mean the world to me just to meet you. I know it's a long shot, but sometimes life surprises you. Thank you for all the laughter." Her mother, Sarah, gently knocked on the door. "Sweetheart, are you sure you want to send this?" Emily smiled faintly. "I know it's crazy, Mom, but what's the harm?" Sarah hugged her daughter tightly, trying to mask the worry in her eyes. The next morning, they mailed the letter. A few days later, across the country in Los Angeles, the letter arrived at Happy Madison Productions, Adam Sandler's office. Adam was in the middle of a meeting with David Spade about an upcoming project. As the assistant placed the envelope on the table, Adam picked it up absent-mindedly. He began reading, and his expression softened. "Dave, you've got to see this." David leaned in, scanning the neatly written words. The room fell silent. "Missoula, Montana," David murmured. "That's way out there." Adam nodded, running a hand through his curly hair. "Yeah, but I don't care. We're going." "Wait, are you serious?" David stared at his friend, in disbelief. "Dead serious." Adam stood, already pulling out his phone. "We've made people laugh for years. Now it's time we do something real." David paused for a moment. "Count me in." Without hesitation, they arranged to clear their schedules and charter a private flight. The news was kept quiet. They didn't want press or attention. This was for Emily, not for publicity. Back in Missoula, Emily continued her routine, not knowing her letter had touched two of Hollywood's biggest comedic icons. The days grew shorter and colder. Her strength weakened, but her spirit remained. One chilly morning, a knock came at the door. Sarah opened it and froze. Standing there, in winter coats and warm smiles, were Adam Sandler and David Spade. "Hi," Adam said warmly, holding out his hand. "We're looking for Emily," Sarah gasped, tears welling in her eyes. You actually came." Emily, hearing the commotion, struggled to the doorframe. The sight before her made her breath catch, not from illness, but from sheer disbelief. David stepped forward, grinning. "Hey, kiddo, you wrote us quite the letter." Emily's eyes filled with tears. "I can't believe it. You're really here." Adam gently put an arm around her shoulder. "We're here, Emily. We've got time, and we've got stories." The sun broke through the clouds, casting soft light over the porch. At that moment, the coldness of her diagnosis melted into something warmer, a feeling of being seen, heard, and deeply cared for. The modest living room of the Thompson home had never held such energy. Family photos, crocheted blankets, and the faint aroma of cinnamon from Sarah's baking formed the backdrop of a surreal encounter. Adam Sandler and David Spade, Two of Hollywood's most recognizable comedians now sat on the couch chatting casually with Emily as though they had known each other for years. Emily couldn't stop smiling. The initial shock had faded, replaced by pure childlike joy. She sat curled under a quilt, her oxygen tube gently trailing from her nose. Her thin frame bore the toll of her illness, but her bright blue eyes danced with life. "So, Billy Madison or Joe Dirt?" David teased, leaning forward. "Be honest. Which is your favorite?" Emily laughed softly. "Honestly? The Do-Over, because it was both of you. I watched it so many times the nurses at the hospital started quoting it." Adam chuckled, his signature grin spreading across his face. "Well, we'll consider that the ultimate compliment." Sarah returned from the kitchen with hot cocoa for everyone. She handed Emily's mug with extra care. Watching her daughter's joy brought unexpected relief. For months, every day had been measured in medications and worsening test results. But today was different. David and Adam settled into storytelling mode. They spoke of awkward auditions, disastrous stand-up gigs, and behind-the-scenes pranks. The room echoed with laughter, the sound filling every corner of the house like sunlight. "After a long winter, do you guys really prank each other that much?" Emily asked between giggles. "Constantly," Adam said. "One time, David replaced my car's horn with the sound of a goat screaming. Took me a week to figure it out." Emily's laugh erupted uncontrollably. The oxygen machine beeped sharply as her body struggled to keep up, but she waved off Sarah's worried glance. "Worth it," she whispered, catching her breath. Later in the afternoon, Adam stood by the window, gazing out at the snow-dusted hills. "Emily," he said gently, "David and I didn't just come to chat. We want to make this trip special. For you." Her eyes widened. "How?" "We made some calls," David added. "We rented out the local movie theater. Tonight, you and your closest friends and family are getting the ultimate private screening. Any movie you want." Emily gasped. "You're kidding." "Nope," Adam smiled. "You pick the movie. We'll bring the popcorn." Sarah's hand flew to her mouth as she fought back tears. It had been years since Emily had stepped foot inside a movie theater. As the sun set, the town's tiny cinema glowed warmly against the darkening sky. Inside, red velvet seats and the familiar scent of buttered popcorn awaited. A small group of Emily's friends and relatives gathered, stunned to see the celebrities casually greeting everyone. Emily chose The Do-Over, her comfort movie. As the lights dimmed, she sat nestled between Adam and David, the two men who had turned her impossible wish into reality. The audience roared with laughter, tears of happiness streaming down faces. For a few magical hours, Emily was no longer a terminal patient. She was simply a teenager enjoying a night out with friends, family, and her heroes. After the film, the trio stepped outside into the quiet, star-filled Montana night. Emily leaned against the theater wall, gazing upward. "Thank you," she whispered. Adam gently squeezed her hand. "No, Emily. Thank you. You reminded us what really matters." David nodded. "You're the bravest, funniest kid we've ever met." A gentle snow began to fall, dusting their shoulders. Emily looked up at her two heroes, smiling through the cold. "I wish this night would never end." Adam looked back at her, his voice soft but certain. "It doesn't have to. We're not done yet." The next morning, a soft snow blanketed Missoula. The streets were quiet. The usual pace of life slowed under the weight of winter. Inside the Thompson home, the mood was light. The previous night's theater experience still lingered in everyone's hearts like a warm memory. Emily sat at the kitchen table, bundled in a thick sweater, a steaming cup of tea in her hands. Adam and David had stayed overnight at a nearby lodge and returned early, determined to make the most of their time with her. "So," Adam said, spreading out a small tourist map of Montana, "we heard you've never really explored your own." Backyard, Emily smiled. I've spent most of my life in hospitals. I never got the chance. David tapped the map with a playful grin. Well then, we've got work to do. That afternoon, they drove through the stunning Montana countryside. Snow-capped mountains framed the horizon, while dense pine forests and frozen lakes passed by their windows. David, behind the wheel of a rented SUV, told ridiculous road trip stories, making Emily laugh until she had to catch her breath. First stop was Flathead Lake, its vast frozen surface glistening under the pale winter sun. They walked slowly along, the shoreline bundled tightly against the biting wind. Emily's steps were small and cautious, but her determination was unwavering. I never thought I'd see this place, Emily whispered, gazing at the endless expanse of ice. Adam knelt beside her. There's beauty in things we take for granted, huh? David pulled out his phone and snapped a photo. This one's going on the Wall of Fame. Emily laughed. You better send me a copy. Next, they stopped in a small diner in Big Fork. The place was empty, except for the kind waitress who, recognizing Adam and David immediately, struggled to keep her cool. Emily ordered her favorite, pancakes with strawberries and whipped cream. The three talked like old friends, sharing memories and life lessons. There was no trace of celebrity pretension. Adam and David listened more than they spoke, deeply moved by Emily's wisdom and dry humor. I used to think life was about big and milestones, Emily said softly, cutting into her pancake. Graduations, weddings, careers. But now I know it's the little moments that matter most. Adam nodded slowly. You're way ahead of most people. David added, You've got more courage than I've ever seen. As the day drew to a close, they returned to Missoula and decided to visit Caras Park, a local landmark. There, in the crisp evening air under the soft glow of streetlights, Adam and David had one final surprise. Waiting near the carousel was a small group of Emily's closest friends, her favorite nurses from the hospital, and even her childhood, teachers. They stood wrapped in scarves and heavy coats, holding candles that lit up the darkness. Emily's eyes filled with tears. What is this? Sarah stepped forward and hugged her daughter tightly. They wanted to celebrate you. The carousel, closed for the season, was opened just for her. With soft music playing, Emily rode on her favorite horse, the cold forgotten as she waved and laughed with her friends. Adam and David stood by, watching with quiet smiles, knowing this moment would stay with them forever. As the ride slowed, Emily stepped down and approached the two men. This has been the best day of my life. Adam hugged her gently. And tomorrow, we keep going. David winked. You're stuck with us for a while, kid. Snowflakes drifted through the air as they walked back toward the cars. Emily leaned on Adam's arm for support, her energy fading, but her spirit brighter than ever. For one day, she had escaped the shadow of her illness. And for Adam and David, this journey had become something far greater than a simple act of kindness. It was a reminder of humanity at its most raw and real. The next morning dawned cold and clear. The Thompson home was calm, the quiet broken only by the soft ticking of the kitchen clock. Emily sat at the table, wrapped in a blanket, sipping tea. Adam and David arrived just after sunrise, smiles on their faces despite the fatigue from the previous day's adventures. We were thinking, Adam said as he slid into a chair across from her, you have a story that deserves to be told. Emily tilted her head, curious. We talked to a friend of ours, David continued. She's a reporter at Good Morning America. No pressure, but if you want, they'd love to do a segment about you, about living fully, even in the toughest circumstances. Emily was stunned. I never wanted attention. I just wanted to meet you two. Adam leaned forward. We know. That's why we trust you to inspire the way only you can. It's your choice. Emily glanced at her mum, who nodded tearfully. If it helps even one person, I'll do it. 2 days later, a small production crew arrived in Missoula. The local hospital allowed the interview to be filmed in their peaceful garden, surrounded by evergreens, dusted in snow. The reporter, a warm and composed woman named Angela, approached Emily gently. Adam and David sat close by, offering silent support. With cameras rolling, Angela asked softly, "Emily, what do you want people to know about your journey?" Emily smiled faintly. "I want them to know that life doesn't have to be perfect to be beautiful. I've had pain, yes, but I've also had kindness from strangers, moments of laughter, and days like these that I never thought possible." Tears filled Angela's eyes. "What would you say to others facing their own struggles?" Emily's voice trembled but stayed strong. "You're never alone. There's always someone willing to stand with you. Sometimes it's family, sometimes friends, and sometimes it's 2 guys from Hollywood who show up when you least expect it." The reporter turned to Adam and David. "Why did you come?" Adam's tone was soft but steady. "Because fame doesn't mean anything if you can't use it to make someone's world brighter. Emily's bravery humbled us." David nodded. "We came to make her laugh, but she gave us more than we could ever give back." The interview ended with a group hug, tears mixed with smiles. Within days of airing, the segment touched millions. Social media exploded with messages of love and support. Like Emily Strong trended worldwide. People from around the globe sent letters, artwork, and donations to research for pulmonary fibrosis. Emily watched from her hospital bed, overwhelmed and grateful. "I never imagined this," she whispered. Sarah squeezed her hand. "You've changed the world, sweetheart." Adam and David visited every day, keeping their promise. They brought her silly gifts, a giant teddy bear wearing sunglasses, matching Emily's crew hoodies, and even a karaoke machine, which David used to badly serenade the nurses. Laughter echoed through the hospital halls. One night, as snow fell softly outside the window, Emily sat quietly with Adam and David. "Do you regret coming all this way?" she asked. Adam looked at her, eyes kind. "Not for a second," David nodded. "You gave us something we didn't know we needed." Emily smiled. "You gave me something too. You made me feel alive again." There was a long silence as they all watched the snowflakes drift lazily to the ground. For once, the ticking clock didn't seem so loud. The fear of time slipping away had been replaced by something stronger: connection, meaning, and the comfort of knowing she had made her mark on the world. The bitter chill of late January had settled over Missoula. The mountains stood silent under heavy snow, and the streets lay quiet under the gray skies. Inside the hospital, Emily rested peacefully, her breathing softer now, her body frail, but her spirit untouched. Adam and David walked slowly down the corridor toward her room, carrying 2 steaming cups of cocoa and a small bag of her favorite cinnamon candies. "She's weaker today," Sarah whispered to them as they approached. Her eyes were red-rimmed, but her smile was steady. "But she's still Emily." They entered quietly. Emily turned her head, managing a soft smile. "You came. Wouldn't miss it," Adam said gently, sitting beside her bed. David perched at the foot of the bed. "We brought the emergency candy stash, strictly doctor-approved." Emily chuckled faintly, her voice thin. "You guys are ridiculous." They spent the morning talking about everything and nothing. Favorite movies, silly memories from the week, and even debating which of Adam's or David's films had aged the worst. At one point, Emily looked at them seriously. "You know, I'm not scared anymore." Adam took her hand. "Why not?" "Because of this," she whispered. "Because of you two, and my family, and everyone who's reached out. I know I mattered. I know I wasn't just a patient in a hospital bed." David swallowed hard. "You were never just a patient, kiddo. You're a legend." The following evening, Emily passed away peacefully in her sleep, surrounded by her mother and the two friends who had come to mean so much. There were no final dramatic words, no heartbreaking goodbye. Just the quiet, tender end of a young life that had burned bright and fast, leaving behind warmth and light. The news broke across the world the next day, social media flooded with tributes. Fans, celebrities and strangers shared their grief and gratitude under the familiar hashtag #EmilyStrong. Adam and David issued a joint statement. Emily taught us more about life, love and laughter in 1 week than most people learn in a lifetime. Her courage and kindness will never be forgotten. Weeks later, Adam and David returned to Missoula to attend a memorial at Caras Park. Hundreds gathered under the soft glow of lanterns. Friends and family spoke of Emily's fierce humor, her unwavering kindness, and her unstoppable optimism. In the face of suffering, Adam stepped up to the microphone, his voice thick with emotion. Emily showed us that even when life seems impossibly hard, laughter can be a shield and kindness can be a weapon. She reminded us of what matters most, the people we touch along the way. David added, "We came to give Emily a gift, but she was the gift." Inspired by her story, Adam and David founded the Emily Thompson Foundation, dedicated to supporting young adults with terminal illnesses, funding research, and providing experiences that brought moments of joy amid unimaginable challenges. Years later, kids and families across the country would speak the name Emily Thompson with gratitude and affection, never forgetting the brave young woman from Missoula who had shown the world how to live fully even when time was short. Back in Los Angeles, Adam kept a framed photo of Emily on his desk, a reminder of a promise kept and of the girl who had taught him the true power of kindness. David kept the matching photo on his living room wall. "Legend," he whispered every time he passed by. The snow melted, seasons changed, but Emily's legacy, built on laughter and compassion, endured forever.